We are here, everybody. We are at Jason Goes to Hell, one of the most controversial sequels in slasher history. This movie is so hated and highly debated amongst people that actually defend it that it is insane. One of the weirdest, most off-the-wall sequels in this franchise. I've had people messaging me from the beginning. I cannot wait for your Jason Goes to Hell review. I can't wait for you to say fuck this movie. I can't wait for that swear counter to come up. I can't wait for you to tear this movie a new ass. Well, it is time, people, for all of you to be slightly disappointed. So Jason Goes to Hell tells the story of Jason finally being killed off, but the spirit of Jason, or the worm version of Jason, whatever the fuck you want to call it, starts possessing other people and carrying on the legacy of Jason Voorhees. I gotta be honest, guys, I was really dreading rewatching this movie because of how hated this movie was. I just expected if it was gonna be any worse than Jason Takes Manhattan, I might have to quit this entire franchise review series. It was gonna be that painful, but the funny thing about Jason Goes to Hell is for the longest time, this was the only Friday the 13th movie that I had ever saw. I watched this as a kid. Remember absolutely nothing about it, but I was told that Freddy brings Jason's mask down into the ground at the end of it. And so I went and rented the movie just based off of that, because I'm a Freddy fanatic. Remember absolutely nothing about the movie. I watched it about a year and a half ago whenever I was marathoning all the Friday the 13th movies for the very first time. By the time I got to this sequel, I was so kind of wore out because I did not like New Blood. Really didn't like Jason Takes Manhattan that I totally checked out, and I don't remember anything about this movie again. So when I watched this just a couple of days ago to refresh myself and really watch it for the first time with just critical eyes and actually sit down and invest myself into this movie, I gotta be honest with you, I was entertained. Now, before we get into that, let me start off for a change with the negatives, because there are some negatives with this movie. It's not perfect. It's actually quite a mess, but it's an entertaining mess. When you get into the negatives of Jason Goes to Hell, first and foremost, this movie has absolutely no reason to exist. The fact that this is a Friday the 13th movie is kind of sacrilegious, which is why Friday the 13th fanatics despise this movie, and I totally get it. I totally get it. This is the same argument that I have with people who defend Freddy's Dead. Me, as a Freddy fanatic, I think that movie is a fucking abomination. I have a lot of people that say, hey, it might be terrible, but it is entertaining as hell, and I love it for that. Well, now I get to know what it's like to be on that end, because I actually was entertained as hell watching Jason Goes to Hell. Hey, nice little lead in there. But as far as the negatives, yeah, this movie has no reason to exist. The fact that they went from the Friday the 13th template and kept going to do something so off the wall and weird like this, it just doesn't make any sense why you would do this. They did it because they had to. They got the rights over at New Line. Sean S. Cunningham got the rights, and he couldn't use the title Friday the 13th. They could only use Jason. So this was their way of utilizing Jason but doing something different and not just doing a Friday the 13th movie with a different title. Not a very good idea. I mean, not a very good idea at all. Not only for the success of this movie, obviously, or its legacy, but because you're going to piss a lot of fans off, because Friday the 13th fans want a fucking Friday the 13th movie. Go figure. Another huge negative for me in this movie, I cannot stand the look of Jason in this movie. Holy shit, he looks like he's been microwaved like a fucking hot dog or a meatball or something like that just keeps bulging out, like the way that his head is bulging around the straps of his mask, and it looks horrible. I hate the look of Jason in this. Even whenever I was playing the Friday the 13th game, knowing and remembering nothing about this movie, you have the option to play as Jason Goes to Hell Jason, and I never did because he looks like shit. Going along with that, and this might not be fair since he's not really in the movie that much as Jason, which is another thing I'm going to get into very shortly, I don't really think Kane Hodder did anything that worthwhile in this movie. Again, I don't get the big gist, I don't get the big deal with Kane Hodder. In this one, he actually grunts and shit like that, and he's still doing his breathing thing. That's the Jason you get. And I'm making fun of it because I don't really get it. I don't get Kane Hodder hype. I don't. Oh yeah, I'm not gonna get into extreme detail with it. If you've seen this movie, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. All I'm gonna say is, yeah, sadomasochistic bondage, naked shaving scene, no thanks. Also, as somebody who's becoming a fan of this franchise quite a bit over this review series, the whole little jumping the shark thing about Jason having this long-lost half-sister and half-niece and all that other bullshit, no, fuck that. I cannot stand when a sequel just inserts this missing character that has never been there and never been alluded to just for the conveniences of their script. I hate that shit. So no, Jason doesn't have any fucking sisters, half-brothers, none of that bullshit. He was an only child. Now that that's settled, let's move into the positives. Now normally I would tell you about how bad the acting is and how schlocky the characters are and how goofy the tone is and everything like that. But when I watch Jason Goes to Hell, it feels like this movie is so set on being one of those just gore-fest B-movie slashers that all of that stuff kind of works to the charm of this movie. I don't know what it is. In other movies, it bothers me. When you get to Jason Goes to Hell, it kind of feels like it adds to the fun and the entertainment value that I had. And I gotta be honest, even the whole concept about Jason being dead, at least the Jason that we know of, but kind of the spirit and the essence of Jason traveling amongst these people, it's a concept that's so bizarre and off the wall, and they really just go for it with this movie. They throw everything at the fucking wall and hope everything sticks. That I was entertained by that concept. It really didn't bother me that Jason wasn't in the full runtime of this movie at all, because all of the gore and the carnage candy and all of the insanity of this movie kept me totally entertained to the point where I didn't miss Jason. Shoot me. And I gotta give some credit to Adam Marcus, the guy who is behind this movie, Jason Goes to Hell. At least you went balls out with your concept, man, because, you know, it was ballsy, it was different, it was unique, it was a huge risk. Unfortunately, it really didn't pay off as far as the fans are concerned, but for the few of us that actually did enjoy this movie, at least you went for it. You gave everything you had to this concept, and this dude just kind of put so much insanity and fun and just went extreme with this concept to the point where you can't really fault him for going at it. I mean, going for it. You know, this guy put everything that he wanted to put in this movie. It didn't feel like he left anything out. Some of it might not make any sense, but for pure entertainment value alone, I love the fact that it's not just kind of like dipping its toe into this new concept, but kind of hanging on to Friday the 13th. Nope, it just washes all that shit away and bees its own fucking thing. Now, as far as characters, there's some decent characters here and there. None of them are really memorable as characters. They're entertaining enough for the concept of this movie and for the purposes of their character, but the character of Creighton Duke is pretty badass. I would actually like to see more of this character. There's some history there between him and Jason that I think is very unexplored and very interesting. He's cool, he's interesting. Yeah, he's a character I like.
Creighton Duke.
I know who you are.
I'm gonna kill Jason Voorhees. I need you to help me.
Jason Voorhees is dead.
You know he's not.
And thank fucking God the MPAA took some vacation time whenever this movie was being filmed and put into theaters, because we finally have some actual genuine gory kills back in the Friday the 13th franchise. And God, have you been missed, blood. Because there is some really insane shit as far as kills in this movie, and gore, and, you know, black vomit and all kinds of crazy shit, and devil worms walking around. You needed this to be a hard rated R or it would be god awful. And it actually has one of the goriest, most disturbing kills of the entire franchise whenever this couple is fucking in this tent and you get this signpost stabbed through the tent, through the back of this chick, all the way out through her tits, and then he slices her up the middle and she splits like a piece of bread, and it is all pure gore, carnage, beautiful awesomeness. Honestly, I think the best way to approach this movie is to just completely disregard it as a Friday the 13th film altogether. Disregard Jason even if you want to. Just think of him as just this killer, okay? If you can block out that much of the Friday the 13th and Jason shit and just watch this as a B horror movie, I think it's a hell of a good time. It's not the greatest movie in the world. It just, by the time I got to it, from the schlockiness of New Blood and Jason Takes Manhattan especially, the fact that this new wild concept was executed in Jason Goes to Hell, I had a damn good time with it. I might be the only person on YouTube that had a good time with it, and I don't really care. I had a good time with it. I think this movie is entertaining. It really shouldn't be a part of this franchise. It really shouldn't exist at all, but it entertained me. And at the end of the day, if a movie entertains you, there you go. So if you're going through the Friday the 13th franchise and everybody has scared you to death from watching Jason Goes to Hell, give it a shot, because you might end up enjoying it. I didn't expect to, and I really had a good time with it. It's not the greatest movie in the world by any means. It's definitely not even in the top of this franchise, but for its own merit, this movie was entertaining. And by that, I have to give it a recommendation. So check this thing out on Netflix. So for those of you that have not unsubscribed to me for this review, what do you guys think of Jason Goes to Hell? Are you a part of the camp that cannot stand the existence of this movie? Or do you actually find some enjoyment for it? And tell me why you find some enjoyment in it, because I didn't expect to, and I had a good time with it. So you are not alone, people. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you guys want to check out some of my social media links like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spreadshirt for some Cody Leach merchandise, or my Patreon page, a good way to give back to this channel, help it grow and get some cool exclusive content for your eyes only. Please check out those links down in the video description below. If you want to check out some more of my videos, including the rest of this Friday the 13th review series, you can check that out by clicking right over here.